What is going on, guys? Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do kind of one of those cringy story time videos because I have a little story about what happened when I went to the last meet that I went to. On the way there, we had some issues. So before I get into the story, I just want to give you guys a little overview of the 240. If you're new, welcome. Thank you for clicking on the video. We have a RB20 swapped 240SX with a nice big turd ski on her, and it is not a drift car. And instead of having R888s or something cool like that, we have some admittedly pretty skinny off-road tires. But that's pretty much the 240 in a nutshell, so let's get on to what actually happened. So to set the scene, we were on our way to a car meet, and I hadn't been to a car meet in a little over a year because, you know, my 240 was down. We were swapping it and doing all kinds of stuff to it. But I finally got to take the 240 out, and I was so excited to finally take it out and, you know, show it off a little. You know, I'm pretty proud of the build, and I wanted to show it off a little and hang out with some people and have some fun. So we were on our way there, and we were on a major freeway, and the car just shut off. And that freaked me out because I was in the far left lane on the freeway and I needed to get over to the far right because that was the only shoulder that I could pull over at. So the first thing that went through my mind was just why, what the fuck? Like, I spent all this time trying to get the 240 going, make it reliable, and then first meet I try to go to, the car just shits on me. So the second thought was to check the breaker because we put the breaker there for a reason. It's there to prevent any damage from happening by something potentially shorting out or pulling too much power. One thing you need to know about the breaker is that it is a 250 amp breaker, which is a pretty big breaker. Most cars will never pull 250 amps even when cranking it, which is usually what pulls the most amps. So for something to actually trip that breaker, it has to be going very wrong, so we really need to address that. So here's the breaker right here. It is a 250 amp like I said, and sure enough, when I looked at it, it was set up like that, which means the breaker was popped. So if you are unfamiliar with how breakers work, let me give you a short explanation on it. Essentially, it's a switch. Think of it as the lights are on now the lights are off, and the lights are back on, and now they're off. So having it set up like that, that means the power is connected. Power is going from here to here, which they can then complete the circuit and go to the fuse box. And this specific kind of breaker is what is called a self-resetting breaker. So once it cools down, we can put this back and reset it. But if you'll notice that this terminal right here is actually melted, which is not good. So when that happened, I was just driving normal, wasn't doing anything crazy. I was doing like 60 on the freeway at like 2,000 RPM, so nothing crazy, but I had the radio on, and I had never driven this with the radio on, so I thought, okay, it popped, maybe it's the radio. But admittedly, when I saw that, I didn't think too much of it because I thought, okay, maybe the radio was wired in wrong, and maybe that's what caused that. And then one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me at a car meet happened. The car shut off as I was trying to park. And when I did that, the first thing that went into my head was, thank God that we are at the meet and the car is going to have a chance to cool down and we aren't going to have to worry about anything. But that quickly changed once I popped the center console and took a look at the breaker and noticed the breaker didn't trip this time. So because the breaker didn't trip this time, that told me that something else is wrong, and that's probably what caused it to trip in the first place. So my next thought was, okay, maybe it's one of the fuses in the fuse box. It didn't take me long to realize that that wouldn't have anything to do with it because the fuse box is getting power from the battery, which is also getting power from the alternator, which at the same time is getting fed through the ignition switch, then through the breaker, and then to the actual fuse box. So there's a couple things that it goes through before it gets to the fuse box. After we checked all those fuses and made sure they were good, which they were, we checked the alternator fuse because that is in line with the power that feeds the fuse box, so that could possibly be blown maybe. We have our alternator fuse under the dash and it's kind of tucked away, so I can't really show you guys, but the fuse was intact, so it didn't blow, so it could not have been that. So I'm just like freaking out, like, dude, like if I cannot get this working, then I can't drive the car home. And I'm an hour away from home, I'm gonna have to get it towed home, and I really don't want to do that because, you know, I have a day job and I have work tomorrow, so I'm really not trying to get my car towed home. But thankfully the location the meet was at also had an O'Reilly's there, so we went and picked up some strippers, and honestly they were the cheapest pieces of crap strippers ever. Honestly, if I was in any other situation I would not have bought them. They were so bad, but I had no choice. So we got the strippers because I noticed that the ignition plug had some wires pulled out of it, and we are only using 2 wires on the ignition plug because we're just having it set to on instead of having, you know, the accessory and the start and all that, because we have the start button. We don't need the start with the key. So the ignition cylinder is just there as like a security thing, so you have to have the key in order to drive the car. This is the ignition plug, and I noticed that this connector here was disconnected from the wires. So that told me, hey, we don't have power going there. That's why it's not working. So we got the stripper so we could redo the connector and then the car should work. Unfortunately, that didn't fix it. We still had the same issue. We had the breaker on and the key was on and we had no power going to the car. So that made me think, okay, that's really weird. So maybe it's the battery, but the battery is brand new and it's a yellow top and that's one of the best batteries you can buy. So there's no way that that's having any issues. But we couldn't just assume that. So we did go back to O'Reilly's and bought the cheapest multimeter. Oh my God, dude, this thing was so bad. Like, oh, I really wish I didn't buy it. It was almost $30 and it didn't even work. It was so bad, guys. Like, I spent $40 so far on all this stuff and we might even have to spend more. Literally, when I put the leads on the terminals for the battery to make sure we're getting 12 volts, they sparked and then they got super hot and I thought that if I left it on there, the multimeter might explode. So that gave me a thought, okay, well, why is it doing that? Maybe this multimeter is just broken, not working, and that's probably a possibility, but I thought, okay, maybe there's a short somewhere. Like, something's got to be shorting out somewhere. So in case you don't know and you haven't seen the video, definitely check it out up there. But we did the entire chassis harness, totally custom. I did it myself. We wired everything up and we just did like bare bones stuff, so there's nothing fancy on it. And I also wired in the ignition cylinder later on after I made that video because I wanted to be able to turn the car off with a key, because what I would have to do is either pop the breaker or turn the fuel off to turn the car off. So I did that, and the mistake that I made was keeping the 27-plus-year-old plug from my 91 240 SX. Because I kept this plug, the insulation on this wire is gone. It shorted out with this wire here, which was also getting used, and you can see here it like melted the leads in the plug itself. Like the pins are like fused together. I cannot unplug this right now. I tried so hard. It will not come unplugged. When I saw that the insulation on this wire was gone and that this had a burn mark on here, I knew that something was up with this plug. So that yellow connector right there is where I bypassed the ignition switch. So instead of it running to the ignition switch, it's just bypassing it and going straight to the breaker. So because I did that, I was able to turn this on and we have power. Look at that. Once I bypassed that and we got the power to turn on, I felt so relieved. I was like, yes, I'm gonna get to drive home. I don't have to have someone come save me tonight. If you have had your car towed before, then you know how much it sucks when you just watch it getting pulled up onto the tow truck. It's very depressing. So I felt great. I started the car up, warmed it up a little bit, got it to operating temp, turned it back off, and then, walked around the meet, talked to people, and had a good time. And then afterwards, we did a canyon run, and the car felt amazing. And on the way home, we had zero issues. The straight six sounded so good, and it was so smooth. Like, literally, there was almost zero engine vibrations, and that was incredible. I was not used to that. The KA had a lot of vibrations from what I remember. But that is the story of how a $24 part potentially saved thousands and thousands of dollars that I have put into this car. I spent more on the ECU and the dash alone than I spent on the chassis itself. And it would suck so much if all that work that I did to get it to where it was today, that it was just gone and I had to restart with buying new electronics. So if you could take anything away from this, and any advice that I would give you, is put a breaker in your car. You do not want to have a short destroy your electrical system. You need a breaker. It is a very good idea. Coming from experience, it's something that, honestly, it's $24. I'll have links in the description for some. The one that I bought, I actually couldn't find on Amazon anymore, but I'll have some others linked down below. But definitely pick those up for yourself. You really don't want to take a chance with electrical stuff in your car, because you could potentially have a fire, and that is the last thing you want in your project car. But that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below. Let me know your guys' crazy car stories. And also, I plan on going to some meets in the future. If you guys want to see that footage, definitely comment down below and I'll film a bunch of cool stuff there. And then hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.